to the deep dive. You've handed us a truly profound and pretty unsettling text today, excerpts from Osamu Dazai's iconic novel, No Longer Human.
Indeed. This really isn't just a story. It's more like a chillingly intimate descent into the mind of a character, Yozo, who's grappling with the very essence of human connection. Or maybe the lack of it.
Right. And our mission for this deep dive is to really pull out the most striking insights from these pages, give you a shortcut sort of to understanding the core themes and Yozo's unique, often disturbing perspective. We'll be navigating through three compelling notebooks of self-reflection, and then there's this insightful afterword that kind of flips everything on its head.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this.
What's truly fascinating here, I think, is how the narrative forces you to confront your own assumptions about normalcy, about social interaction, all seen through the eyes of someone who feels profoundly alienated, almost like he's an anthropologist studying some kind of foreign species.
Okay, so we jump right in with a foreword, and it introduces us to Yozo, but not through his words, but through these fragmented images. 3 photographs. What do these pictures immediately signal to us? What are we supposed to get from them?
Well, these photos are more than just snapshots. They're like a chilling premonition of a visual argument, maybe, for his fundamental detachment.
Okay.
The first one, Yozo is a child, maybe around 10. He's in a big group of women, and he's seemingly smiling.
Seemingly.
Yeah, but the narrator describes it as ugly, disagreeable, even an ape's smile. His fists are clenched, and he notes that anyone, trained in beauty and ugliness would just instantly recoil.
Wow. An ape's smile and clenched fists on a child. That's so specific and, yeah, deeply disturbing. And it gets even more unsettling with the second photo, right, as a student. He's described as terrifyingly handsome, which is already a strange phrase, but still lacking the feeling of a living human being.
Right.
It's a skillful smile, but one without the weight of blood or the richness of life, like a blank piece of paper. What do you make of that paradox? Terrifyingly handsome, but sort of empty.
It speaks to this profound emptiness, doesn't it? Like a shell that can mimic human form, even beautifully, but there's nothing really inside.
Uh-huh.
And then the third photo is just the most bizarre. He's older, graying hair, in this dilapidated room, hands over a brazier, not smiling at all.
No smile.
No. His face is utterly devoid of expression, without even an impression. The narrator calls it a dead face, or even like a horse's head on a human body.
A horse's head. Okay. So pulling back, the narrator says he never saw anyone, child, youth, man, with such a peculiar expression across these different life stages. What is Dazai telling us right from the start about Yozo's identity, his relationship with humanity?
Well, it suggests this profound, unsettling detachment isn't something that develops over time. It seems inherent, almost like a congenital condition of his being.
Yeah.
And this raises a really important question for us, for the listener. What does it mean when someone perceives himself and is perceived in such fundamentally unsettling ways right from childhood? Is it like a mental illness, or is it some kind of radical honesty about the human condition that most of us just manage to suppress?
That's a really powerful question to kick us off. So moving into the first notebook, we immediately hit that iconic opening line, "I have led a life of shame." What does he mean by shame here? Is it guilt or embarrassment, or is it something deeper, especially given those early experiences he describes?
Oh, it's far deeper than just embarrassment, I think. He reveals this fundamental disconnect from basic human understanding. Simple things like train station bridges, subways, even bed sheets. He initially saw them as complex games or just decoration, not practical things people use. He even admits he didn't know hunger.
Didn't know hunger.
Not because he was privileged, but because he completely lacked the sensation itself. He says he pretended to be hungry for sweets just to fit in. So this isn't just about not understanding things. It's about not understanding like fundamental human experiences.
That's a staggering admission, not knowing hunger. So to cope with this radical disconnect, his main mechanism emerges, clowning or buffoonery.
Yeah.
He calls it his final courtship to humanity, a desperate attempt to connect by making people laugh, even while he's gripping his fists in terror underneath it all.
Exactly. He calls it a desperate service, sweating with fear, just to avoid offending anyone. It's absolutely a performance, isn't it?
Totally.
And maybe the deeper insight here isn't just about Yozo's specific coping mechanism, but how universally we all kind of construct personas to navigate social anxieties.
Sure.
Dazai just pushes us to consider the terrifying cost when that performance completely consumes the authentic self, making any real connection feel impossible. He gives that specific example wearing a red wool sweater under his yukata in summer, just to get a laugh from his family.
And he reveals he never spoke truthfully, never argued, never defended himself. Any rebuke from his family felt like a thunderbolt. It led him to believe he was just incapable of performing human truth. This avoidance then bred this deep-seated fear of human anger. He saw a frightening animal nature in angry faces, more terrifying, he says, than lions, crocodiles, or dragons. That's a fascinating comparison, the fear of human anger being worse than wild beasts. What's that tell us about how he sees humanity?
It tells us he sees humanity as fundamentally unpredictable and dangerous, capable of a kind of violence that's more insidious maybe than a predator's.
Right.
And he recounts that truly disturbing incident here, being sexually abused by maids and servants when he was a child.
Yeah, that was hard to read.
And he didn't report it. He believed it was pointless to appeal to humans, his parents, police, the government, because they'd always side with those who were, quote, strong in the ways of the world. This just reinforces his view of society as inherently unjust, incomprehensible.
That's just heartbreaking. And his reaction not reporting it because he felt it was pointless is incredibly telling. He also observes what he calls bright, cheerful, and light-hearted distrust everywhere in human interactions.
That phrase.
He gives the example of political party members bad-mouthing a speech on the way home, them praising it sincerely to the host's face. And of course, he himself is constantly deceiving people with his clowning. So what's the core insight here about how he sees human interaction?
Well, this leads to that crucial insight. He found it baffling, difficult to understand how people could live brightly and cheerfully while deceiving each other all the time.
Right.
He saw his own inability to trust as a kind of illness, and his silence about the abuse stemmed from his feeling that others, even his parents, had closed their shell of trust against him. For him, the world isn't just deceptive, it's happily deceptive, and he's the anomaly, the one who just can't reconcile that.
That is a chilling observation, the happy deception.
Okay, now we move into the second notebook. Yozo finds himself at middle school in a new town. He thinks, it might be easier to clown among strangers than family. But this is where his carefully built world starts to crack, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. A pivotal moment. It happens during a gymnastics class. There's this weak, seemingly idiotic student named Takechi. And Takechi sees through Yozo's deliberate clumsiness, his faked fall, and just whispers, Waza, it was on purpose. On purpose.
Wow.
It's this almost accidental moment of profound insight from someone Yozo would never, ever expect.
And he describes this as the moment where the world instantly burst into the flames of hell right before his eyes. The sheer terror of being exposed, of having that facade, that performance seen through, it's immense. It sounds like his entire existence was balanced on that illusion.
Absolutely. And to manage this terror, what does he do? He desperately tries to befriend Takechi. He performs these acts of kindness like cleaning Takechi's oozing ear infection.
It's a bizarre act of devotion. And that leads Takechi to declare these two key prophecies that will basically haunt Yozo. You will be loved by women and you will become a great painter. And these are not comforting predictions for him at all.
No, not for Yozo. And it's fascinating because his relationship with women is incredibly complex right through the novel. He finds them several times more difficult to understand than men, even though he grew up surrounded by them. He describes interacting with them like treading on thin ice, leaving him with internal bleeding wounds, metaphorically speaking. He even notes how women pull you close, then push you away, or scorn you in front of others, then embrace you when alone. What's the takeaway here about how he sees female relationships?
He perceives women as just inherently contradictory, emotionally volatile, and ultimately even more incomprehensible than men. It's really a reflection of his total inability to grasp human sincerity in anyone.
Right.
He even rented those Modigliani art books, because Takechi called them ghost paintings, and started drawing these grim self-portraits, hiding them from everyone except Takechi.
Ah, so art becomes an outlet.
Exactly. He felt these images reflected his true self, the one hidden beneath all the cheerful clowning. The art becomes this secret space for the authentic self he just can't show anyone else.
So then he moves to Tokyo for high school, struggles with dorm life, calls it a cesspool of distorted sexuality. He escapes to his father's villa, and then he meets Haruki Masao.
Ah, Haruki.
Yeah, an older art student. And Haruki introduces him to sake, tobacco, prostitutes, pawn shops, and left-wing thought. quite the curriculum.
Right.
Hariki, even though he's described as a city delinquent, becomes this strange kind of guide for Yozo, managing money, social interactions, things that just terrify the narrator.
Yeah.
Why is Hariki so appealing to him?
Well, Hariki represents this dangerous yet maybe strangely comforting path into the underbelly of society. A place where Yozo feels his own brokenness might be less exposed, less judged. And the narrator finds prostitutes safe, his word, because he sees them as idiots or lunatics, devoid of desire, like Mary's halo. They are, in his view, just another type of outsider, maybe easier to navigate because they aren't pretending to be normal.
It's such a warped perspective, yet this peculiar side effect emerges. He gets this reputation as a womanizer or a ladies' man, attracting women despite being completely passive.
Yeah, it's ironic.
This bonus attachment, as he calls it, makes him really uncomfortable. It's like even his attempts to disappear into the shadows accidentally make him more visible and more misunderstood.
Absolutely. And he also gets involved with that communist study group. But, he's not a believer in the ideology itself.
No.
Rather, he just enjoys the illegal atmosphere, the comfort of feeling like an outsider, among other outsiders. He even uses his clowning to try and relax the tense meetings. It's just another layer of performance, another attempt to blend in without ever truly belonging.
And then his life takes this really drastic turn. He gets involved in a double suicide attempt with a married woman, Tsuneko, driven by what? Utter destitution and humiliation.
Yes, that seems to be the trigger. She dies, but he survives after they jump into the sea in Kamakura. This is a monumental event, obviously.
Huge. And the aftermath is so telling, isn't it? Hospitalization, police, prosecutors. He even fakes coughing blood to try and gain sympathy. But the prosecutor, who's described as calmly discerning, sees right through his act. And this results in this profound sense of shame that Yozo feels is worse than any prison sentence.
Amen.
He gets a suspended prosecution. But that failure, the failure to even successfully end his life and the exposure of his deception to this shrewd observer, it just deepens his sense of being utterly disqualified as a human being.
It cements it, really.
So, after the suicide attempt, he's expelled from school. He ends up living with Hirame, his father's art dealer, who now acts as his guardian, basically keeping him under constant surveillance. What's the atmosphere like here? How does this new environment kind of add to his alienation?
Oh, it's a bleak existence.
Yeah.
He's completely isolated. His clowning efforts, when he tries them, are just met with scorn. He even loses the will to attempt suicide again.
Wow.
And Hirame's communication is just maddeningly indirect, guarded. It reflects this societal pretense that just frustrates the narrator to no end. It's like living in this silent play where everyone knows the rules except him.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But this leads to a crucial realization for him, doesn't it? He finally concludes, the world isn't an ocean, it's individual people. He starts to believe that humans never truly obey other humans, and that the difficulty of the world is the difficulty of individuals. This gives him a slight sense of agency, apparently, makes him a little selfish and less timid. That feels like a significant shift for him, to pinpoint the source of his struggle, not as some vast, incomprehensible world, but as the frustrating uniqueness of individual people.
It is a moment of clarity for him. Perhaps the closest he gets to really understanding his predicament, or maybe just reframing it. He eventually leaves Hirame's house, though he still struggles massively with forming friendships, visiting people.
Right.
And he reluctantly goes back to Hariki.
Oh, Hariki again.
Yeah, who's become even more exploitative.
Yeah.
Constantly borrowing money, taking advantage, acting like some great benefactor just for helping him after the suicide attempt. So even his attempt to seek familiar comfort just leads to more exploitation.
It's a pattern. He then becomes the kept man of Shizuko, a journalist, lives with her and her daughter, Shigeko. He starts drawing manga professionally under a pseudonym, but his art is grim, sometimes pornographic, really reflecting his inner state. And despite trying to feel less timid, that truly heartbreaking moment occurs when Shigeko, the little girl who calls him Papa, reveals her wish. I want my real Papa.
What does that do to him?
Oh, that just shatters his fragile sense of belonging. It's such an innocent, childlike statement, but it cuts right through all his carefully constructed facades. It exposes his deepest fear, that he's an imposter, incapable of being a real father, a real person.
Yeah.
His drinking escalates dramatically after this.
So then he has this brief, almost innocent relationship with Yoshiko, a tobacco shop girl. She's described as trusting, pure, very pure. He promises to quit drinking, marry her. Their marriage is initially joyful, it seems, but very short-lived.
Yeah.
Then that devastating incident happens. While Yozo is present, right there in the room, Yoshiko is sexually assaulted by a merchant.
It's horrific. He describes seeing two animals and feels this terrible fear. His sense of worth just plummets even further. He says his white hairs began that night, and he completely loses confidence, forever severing ties with hope, with joy. He feels it was Yoshiko's trust that was defiled, not just her body. And he repeatedly asks this question: is innocent trust a sin? Pause. That question. Is innocent trust a sin? It's just devastating. What does that specific phrasing reveal about his complete psychological breaking point?
Well, it reveals the ultimate perversion, really, of his worldview. Yeah. For Yozo, trust isn't a virtue anymore. It's a vulnerability, almost a flaw, because it can be so easily exploited, so easily defiled in the world as he sees it.
Yeah.
After that, he descends further into morphine addiction. Enabled by this sympathetic but crippled pharmacist's wife, he resorts to copying erotic prints just for money to buy drugs. He even enters into an ugly relationship, as he calls it, with the pharmacist's wife just to get more. His life just becomes this downward spiral of self-destruction and moral degradation.
He attempts suicide again with sleeping pills dial, I think. But he's saved. He wakes up muttering, "I want to go home," and makes this strange declaration to the bar, madam. "I want to go where there are no women."
And his wish is, well, eerily fulfilled.
Yeah, eerily is the word. He's committed to a brain hospital where there are only men. He claims he was never insane, but then immediately admits lunatics usually say that.
Right.
Classic.
He feels like a ruined man. The Japanese word is hu, hygiene, utterly broken, discarded by society. His eldest brother eventually retrieves him. His father has died, and the family basically just wants him to live quietly out in the countryside, out of sight. His final words in the notebook are just so profound and chilling. "Now I have neither happiness nor unhappiness. Everything merely passes."
Wow.
He's 27, but looks over 40. That feeling, neither happiness nor unhappiness, just everything merely passes. It's such a bleak conclusion to his internal narrative.
It's the ultimate state of apathy, isn't it? The absolute exhaustion of a soul that has fought and failed to connect.
And the final indignity, or maybe it's a kind of ironic comedy. He ends up living in this dilapidated house with an old maid named Tetsu, who also sexually abuses him.
Unbelievable.
And the very last incident he records, Tetsu mistakenly gives him a laxative, Hanamochin, instead of his sleeping pills, Calmotion. And he just describes Hanamochin as a comedy noun. It's almost like this dark joke from the universe, just underscoring his complete lack of control, his absurdity.
What a bleak, yet somehow strangely compelling journey through his notebooks. But the deep dive doesn't end there with Yozo's narrative. It concludes with an afterword. From an unnamed third party, maybe an editor, who discovers the notebooks and photos years later. What does this add to our understanding of Yozo and the whole narrative we've just absorbed?
Yeah, this is where Dazai really pulls the rug out from under us, I think. The editor meets the madam from the bar in Kyobashi, the one who'd kept Yozo's notebooks and photos. And she offers this strikingly different perspective on him. She says, "Our Yozo was very obedient, very considerate. And if he hadn't drunk, no, even if he did drink, he was a good boy, like a god."
Like a god, that's an incredibly generous view, almost shockingly so, given everything we've just heard from Yozo himself, his self-perception as disqualified as a human being.
Exactly.
But isn't it also possible, maybe, that his obedience and consideration were just another facet of that fear-driven clowning, not genuine kindness, and perhaps the madam simply perceived what she wanted to see or what he performed for her?
That's the core tension Dazai leaves us grappling with, isn't it? If we connect this to the bigger picture, it suggests that while Yozo saw himself as utterly alienated, unworthy, some individuals saw only his gentle, accommodating nature. Maybe they misinterpreted his clowning as inherent kindness. It really challenges the whole idea of an objective truth about a person.
Right. And this raises that important question that just lingers long after you finish the book. In a world where we often only see what we expect to see, or maybe what we're prepared to see, how much of our understanding of others is really just a reflection of our own biases, our own assumptions? Is it possible the narrator was truly a good boy, like a god, as the madam said, and his suffering was compounded by his own inability to accept any kindness or to truly see himself as others might have seen him?
Or perhaps it's the tragedy of Yozo, that he was just fundamentally incapable of seeing himself as anything but a failure, even when others sometimes saw something divine, or at least deeply human and sympathetic.
Well, this deep dive into No Longer Human has certainly been a journey. Through profound alienation, that desperate struggle for connection, and the very unsettling nature of trust and deception in human life. It's a powerful reminder, I think, of the chasm that can exist between how we see ourselves and how others see us.
Definitely. We've seen how one individual can feel so utterly disconnected from the very fabric of human existence, leading to this life of carefully constructed facades, performances, and just profound internal suffering.
It certainly leaves you with a lot to ponder. So, what stands out to you listening to this deep dive? Perhaps it's the unsettling power of other people's perceptions, or maybe that haunting question of what it truly means to be human in a world that's filled with both genuine connection and, well, constant performance. Keep exploring, keep questioning. Until next time.